Good afternoon, everybody. I want to welcome all of you to the webinar, Branding and Marketing, presented by the Temecula Valley Chamber of Commerce. Before we begin today's webinar, we have a few Zoom reminders. If you have a question, please enter it into the chat box or the Q&A box. You will only be able to see the presenter and his presentation. We can't see or hear you. You will also receive a follow-up email with a video copy of this presentation, along with any links or documents discussed. This will include the speaker's contact information as well. Our presenter today is the Principal and Creative Director of the Creative Bar. I would like to welcome Justin Lawler.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Chamber. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you for everyone who's attending this. I appreciate your time, and I'm hoping that this will be informative. And I know the whole Zoom thing is still weird at this point, but I'm hoping that this is something that will be, again, informative and that you guys can apply to your business. I'll start the presentation and give you guys a little bit of background and a little bit of an outline of what we'll go over today. Again, like what Brooke said, if we have enough time at the end, please use the chat feature or the question feature to be able to ask some questions, and I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. So here we go. Starting with this series, this main topic will be on branding and marketing. A little bit about myself. I am a owner of a creative firm located in the Marietta, Temecula area. We're at one of those weird parts where we're kind of on the Marietta side, but if you throw a rock, you'll hit Temecula kind of thing. I think we all kind of know it. I've been doing this professionally since 1998, and a lot of the clients that I've served over the years have been a big array of national and international ones. Anheuser-Busch, K2, Disney, Marvel, Hilton, KTM, Albertsons, to name a few. The Creative Bar is the name of my organization. We do focus on branding, but we hold a lot of other services like marketing and advertising, design, web design, app development, commercials. Again, some of our larger clients that we deal with are the Anheuser-Busch family of products like Michelob Ultra, Bud Light. We do work on the Hilton luxury division, so Waldorf Astoria, LXR, Conrad Hotels, stuff like that. But also, we're not a niche agency. We do a lot of small business. We do a lot of educational nonprofit. The chamber, to really tie in where this presentation came from, we've been working with the chamber since 2004. So before this company even started, we've been working on the chamber events, the look, the brand, all that good stuff. And going into our presentation. So we broke this up into 4 parts. Really is to really discuss the differences between branding, marketing, and advertising, and really how to audit it for your own personal businesses, whether they're large or small, to see where the improvements can be made. And also, given our current climate, brands are really, really, really important right now, especially the industries that have kind of relied on the owners to be the person that delivers their personality, their ideals, their trust into clients. Because right now it is very, very, very hard to do that. As you all know, being remote, doing things via Zoom is not the same as a handshake in person. So the great part about brands is that they do advocate on your behalf. It's the only employee you'll have that will answer questions via website at 2 in the morning, that will be that ad in the newspaper or on Facebook or Instagram to give an impression of your business and your organization, and making sure that it is authentic and stems from what is going to give you the advantage over your competitors is more important now than ever. So I want to start by going into what is the difference between branding, marketing, and advertising. I love this analogy. My employees hate it because they've heard me say it, but I really feel that it really creates a visual where we can kind of understand the differences. In a sense, branding is who we are, marketing is what we're saying, and advertising is where we are saying it. And I like to use the analogy of if you owned a donut store, and your donut store, had selected hours, and you decided, hey, we want to have, somebody hold out a sign, in traffic to direct people into our storefront. Hiring that person, what they look like, what they sound like, their skills, whether they're able to, twirl the sign, whether they're very loud, whether they're soft-spoken, whether they are, in a costume, whatever the case is, they are the personality, they are the look of what you're looking for as far as uniform. They are representing you when they are outside of that brick and mortar store. What they're saying to get people to come to the business, whether that's, we're open at 5 a.m. or we have the freshest donuts or the most affordable donuts, or whatever that messaging is that they're saying. They only have like 2 or 3 seconds as people walk by or traffic goes by or whatever's on that sign to get people to come in. That is your marketing. Now, picking where that person stands, like what corner, based on traffic, based on what time of day it is, based on, the demographic, is it residential versus commercial? That is more of the advertising aspect of it, thinking of it statistically of what's going to come in through that part to hear the message, to see the brand, to then go and visit the store. So you can see how all three of those work in unison, but they are very different and they are very important. But when they all three come together, it really makes for an effective brand marketing and advertising campaign. So just to kind of clarify that a little bit too, I like to always do this too. What is a brand? And before we talk about what is a brand, I think it's important to get any inconceived ideas of what a brand is. The brand is not a logo. A logo or any other kind of trademark is not the brand itself. It's merely a symbol for it. A brand is not a corporate identity system. Consistency alone does not constitute a brand. It's not your letterhead, it's not your logo, it's not your website, it's not, those are parts, but it's not your brand. And here's the most important part. A brand is not a product or service. Your brand is not real estate. Your brand is not insurance. Your brand is not, a design house. Marketing people often talk about managing their brands, but what they usually mean is managing their products or sales or distribution and quality. So that brings us to what a brand is. A brand is a distinct understanding of a product, service, or a company. Brands do not exist on data sheets, but in the mind of consumers. This is what people say about us when we're not in the room. I feel like that is the most important part to think about of a brand. You can say you have the best service, but if consumers try to call or they complain about something and they get hung up on or treated rudely, they're going to say your business is not customer service, right? That it's a bad experience, and that's your brand. If that's what all the comments on Yelp are, that's what people know. Oh, what is this restaurant? I've never heard of it. Oh, they're really bad. Their wait times are awful, or their food isn't that great. That's what your brand is. So being able to be authentic, be honest about your offerings and your distinction, and live up to that promise that you're promising your customers will help in turn develop what that brand messaging should be. So what does a well-executed brand do? Sales time. A brand's job is to create an atmosphere where people want to buy. If you don't have to spend half your time explaining who you are, what you do, why you should be chosen over competition, if they already know that going into it, then you can just talk about what you can do for them specifically. And that cuts a lot of time for your sales guys or gals. Competitive edge. The degree of trust a customer feels towards the product rather than an assessment of its features and benefits will determine whether they will buy a product or service or another. I think Tylenol versus generic is a great example. It's priced $2. Sometimes it's the same darn thing in both jars, but why do we pick Tylenol? People hate to be sold to, but love to buy. This is one of my favorite sayings, only because a brand's job is to ultimately create an atmosphere where people love to buy. I like to use the example of, an iPhone. Like, I know a lot of people here have an iPhone, and the experience of buying one of those, whether you buy it in store at Apple or you see the commercial and then you go on the website, you get to pick your color, you get to, pick your features, and then you order it, you wait for the package, it finally arrives and it has some really, really nice boxing and packaging, and you have that sense of like, oh, it's here, it's gonna, it's finally here, and you set it up. That whole experience people love, and they love the product. But compare that to, as soon as this meeting's over, if you walk out to the store or the grocery store and a stranger comes up to you and says, hey, I have iPhones in the trunk of my car, would you like to take a look? No, right? I mean, there's a clear distinction of, it's the same product. It could even be the same price, if not cheaper. But you're being sold to, and instead of, it's your idea to want to buy it in a comfortable way that the brand has presented for you. So that's what a brand does. Okay, so going to the second part of the presentation, into auditing. Is your brand purposeful or based on your own personal likes? Is that helping or hurting your message? Sometimes, and especially in the beginning of businesses and startups, we do what we like. And in some case that works because maybe you are also your target demographic. Sometimes it's not. And as the bigger you get, possibly the less and less and less you become the target market. Whether, let's say you become successful at a Motel 6 chain. Do you believe that the executive of Motel 6 for the United States is staying or prefers to stay at a Motel 6? Maybe not. Maybe he's not the budget traveler that he was or she was when she started. So this is an important thing to take audit, to make sure that there's a line in the sand between what you personally like or how you personally act and how your brand purposefully acts. Okay, going into this is one of my favorite quotes before going into before you go into auditing. The pessimist complains about the wind, the optimist expects it to change, the leader adjusts the sails. So what you do with this information is up to you, whether it's, I can't do it, or, hey, I don't need to change. But given any information, it's up to us as business leaders to make the adjustments needed. So what needs to be improved with the brand? This is good self-reflection too. I always start with these 4 pillars. Awareness. How well known or noticeable is your brand in the industry? What do people know about your organization before becoming a customer? Is it you personally, or is it your company? How many people, they know who you are, but they couldn't recite the name of your business, or really what you do and what's, what is unique to your organization. Again, going into distinction, how well do people understand the attributes or promises that set your brand apart from competitors? Beyond price, what do people know about how you conduct business? Again, this comes back to whether that's service-based, whether that's, if it's a company that's more of a caretaking and, they care about people and it's nonprofit work, do they know that about you? Do you give back a lot if that is your brand persona? Or is it innovation? What have you innovated in the last 10 years that people know? I think if you look at the automotive market, you could look at, Ford versus like Volvo. Like Ford built Ford tough, right? We know that these things they're made well, they're made in America. These things are built to really last a long time. You can really beat these things up, especially if you have like a commercial grade job. Or Volvo will take a look at their products. Again, they're both modes of transportation, but sold completely different. Volvo will say it's all about safety, right? They show that in their commercials by showing parents putting their kids in car seats and saying, the most precious things in life, you put at risk when you drive a car, and you should drive a car that keeps that, as a high priority in the safest possible way. Those are great, compelling arguments. None of them talk about price when it comes to that, unless their brand is value focused. And if their brand is value focused, look at Walmart. Walmart, when they first came out, or at least on the West Coast, you had Pick and Save, you had Target, you had Kmart, and they all kind of did the same thing. It was all about discounts. But when Walmart said, well, we're cheaper than everybody, and they were, the other ones started, falling by the wayside, until Target said, okay, if we can't be the cheapest one, let's be the coolest ones. Let's update, we'll make everything look kind of like a hip dorm room. We'll change our apparel. We'll get, professional, really high noted designers to design exclusive. We'll get cool brands like Converse. And they did a good job. They became cooler than Walmart, and lived up to that promise, and they were able to survive. But again, similar types of stores, big distinction. Credibility and trust. How well do people believe and trust in you and your promises? How good is your reputation? And then finally, customer motivation. How well does your brand inspire preference and pave the way for a purchasing decision? This is the most important question, if you take from this, of knowing what makes you special. If you close tomorrow, what is one attribute would your customers miss most or find hardest to replace? If that is personal handholding, if that is expertise, that you're constantly writing blogs or giving knowledge about a process that seems unfamiliar, if it's creative options, is it problem solving? These are things that really help define who you are, and to amp up later when we talk about creative and building. So first, we're going to start with values. This is a great thing that kind of starts where we kind of left off of what would one thing that people miss the most. What do you value as a brand? What's authentic for your brand? I believe that the action a brand takes needs to be genuine and a true expression of the company's beliefs. Brand values are used to help steer your decision-making and direction of your organization. After a compiled list of these values you believe play a significant role in your business decisions and plans, pick a few that you feel and take precedence over others. The biggest mistake that you could ever do is say, we have the best product and the best service. That is you can say that about anything, and it could be true, but it's the most generic thing that people can say about their business. There's a way to kind of finite that and make it more specific to really be ownable by your company and your organization. So I left a couple examples here of how you can actually kind of get a micro look at really what it is that you do the best compared to competitors. So again, this presentation will be available at the end, but these are some of the things that are a little bit more specific. So I challenge you guys to come up with that if you haven't had them already. So now we kind of have our values. We kind of know what makes us special. And now how do we create that? How do we combine the visual, verbal, and emotional aspects that relate to your customer and make a promise? Because at the end of the day, brands, in a sense, are promises. And whether you keep that or not is up to your business. So the first thing is our brand personality. A good way to do this without going through a lot of marketing exercises to find out this through archetypes or what have you. A good easy way is, if my brand was a person, who would it be? It's easier to think outside of you specifically as an owner, or maybe even as the stakeholder in the company. How they talk. Imagine if it was a famous spokesperson to speak on behalf of your brand. Who would it be and why? The why is the most important part. Are they loud and adventurous, like a Richard Branson for Virgin, or are they articulate and experts in their field? Are they relatable and caring? Establishing these characteristics help define your brand's persona to easily replicate for other members of the organization. Again, if it's up to just, well, the brand is who the owner is, even again, like Richard Branson and Virgin is a good example. There is distinction between how Virgin as a company answers a question versus Richard Branson. They share a lot of DNA, just like a lot of other companies like Mrs. Fields or Bill Gates and Microsoft. There is a difference between the two, but they do share some of the DNA as the founder. Making sure, like Allstate, when they picked, I think we could all envision who it is, but the way that person talks with a strong voice, confident, but at the same time approachable. Those are the characteristics of the persona that they want the brand conveyed. So how does my brand convey personality? The brand personality can be captured by photography or imagery, how we conduct ourselves, what we're doing in those photos. Again, going back to Volvo, like they show that parent putting, their prized possession, their child in that car seat and that seatbelt in the back seat. But ultimately, it comes down to a lot of the written components. A great way to do that is have a list of keywords that you like to use. Whether you're a winery that's focused on, the art of storytelling, you want to use more descriptive words to describe how your wine or how your tastings or how your restaurant is conveyed, and so it can be captured consistently beyond just you, the owner. The tone and manner, how we say it, creating an outline and writing tips can also really help maximize impact. Being consistent to make sure, this person represents the brand in this way, but this person has a completely yin-yang approach when they do it. That creates almost a schizophrenia of how somebody perceives your brand. Sometimes they're hot and cold, sometimes they're loud and quiet. Like it doesn't create a consistent message in your consumer's mind. So going back to what it looks like, your brand identity, and this is where the logo components and some of the other key visuals come into play. How can my brand be visually recognizable? Remember, your identity is not just a logo, it's a design scheme composed of a number of core elements, imagery and graphic treatments that come together to create a distinctive look and feel that make your brand instantly recognizable. Establishing standards will allow you to make decisions easily and efficiently regarding the look and feel of your brand's image, while also inspiring new ideas for creativity. So creating branding guides and brand standards are always great, especially if you're growing. They help employees on board and be able to replicate, that brand persona, that brand identity. It helps even the little things like, hey, I need to create an ad. I sponsored this event at the chamber. They need a quarter-page ad. If you have those characteristics and that type of imagery outline, it's very easy to have people replicate that, just to make sure we have that consistency. But ultimately, all of it needs to refer back to your main offering. Referring back to your main offering will help guide your key visuals. Is your product or service innovative? Then your design should look sleek and modern. Are your products and services focused on customer service? Then your design should include people and feel approachable. I always like to use this analogy of Apple, just because we all know the brand. Whether you're a Samsung person or not, you still recognize that brand and their components. So I like using the analogy if they produce something that they normally wouldn't. Let's say like a toaster. If Apple came out with a toaster, I think we would all agree it would be a really, really cool toaster. It would be something we probably didn't know we needed. It would have some kind of feature that, we couldn't go without after experiencing the Apple's version of toast. And ultimately, it would look really cool in the kitchen and be sleek in design and kind of fall in line with what we know that Apple produces. Now, how can we all think about what an Apple toaster looks like without an awesome job at branding? We know that their their brand is innovative, even if they rip off something Samsung did 2 years ago, but they still package it in a way where it's, wow, Apple did it again. You know, that's they did what, you know, they did the visual voicemail like they did with Toast. You know, they do such a good job of that we all can count on them to do that. And ultimately having a sleek design with their marketing materials, their commercial, their packaging, their phones. We know that the toaster would then fall in line with that brand as well. So going back to that, it is important to establish that really impactful brand identity to create consistency and for customers to eventually know, hey, company X has this new service. I bet you it's as good as this. Or think about it as a restaurant. If they're known for this kind of food and now they have dessert, if their dessert is as good as their food that they normally carry, it's going to be amazing. That's how we create consistency. So going into the fourth part of our presentation is activating. So how do we do, now that we have all this stuff built, what do we do with it? So we want to apply brand consistency through a variety of marketing and advertising methods. One, again, we need to know our brand. We need to know who we are, what we do, and how we do it before we start talking about what we're going to say to people. Ways to standardize is we know our brand position. Again, this is something we don't talk a lot in this presentation, but having that position of what you do and how you conduct business is very important. It is different than a mission statement. A mission statement is more forward-facing. A brand position statement is more internal-facing. Know your brand's personality and tone of voice, and know your purpose in marketing. How can you make that consistent? I wanted to give a quick example of what this is Budweiser's or Bud Light, I'm sorry, of how we create that consistency, whether it's our agency or the agency in New York or, you know, one in Europe. This is kind of what we use as our brand bullseye. We need to be, again, at the core of Bud Light is to be fun. The second is to be social. The third is to be co-ed. It's not just one person hanging out. And the last part is aspirational. It has to be something that somebody would want to do or aspire to do. So having this bullseye helps us then to create guidelines like this. So what aspirational is versus what it isn't. It's not James Bond getting into a car. It's having a barbecue and having beer and enjoying time with friends. That sounds great. I would want to do that. Co-ed is natural moments with guys and girls together. It's not cliche roles for guys and girls. So that's a big difference. What's relatable versus something that everyone just posts as a cliche thing on Instagram. And then going back to what it's not, social is not wild parties. Social is just plural people engaging. And then fun is lighthearted and gregarious. It's not juvenile and considerate. So this is how we create a visual style for executing those brand pillars in our target. Going into something completely different, this is going into the luxury markets for LXR, which is one of the newer hotel chains by Hilton. Creating a mood board, a color board, and patterns is that visual consistency, so we can see everything looped together to make sure, okay, I can look at this and really identify with what I'm getting by staying at one of these hotels. We go into our personality. We're quietly confident, we're polished, we're alluring, and we're sophisticated. This is very different than, you know, Quality Inn or something like that. There's a big difference in personality, and this is how we showcase that, whether that's social media, whether that's a press release, whether that's copy on our website or brochures. And then how that all comes together in a brand architecture, our taglines, our insight, why our luxury is different than this luxury. And this is even amongst our family brands of how LXR could be different than Waldorf, and, you know, that consistent luxury that's across the world, no matter where you are, that's theirs. But LXR is more of when you travel someplace far, you want to experience a little bit of the culture surrounding it. You don't want to look into, you don't want to be in the same kind of room that's in Argentina than it is in Switzerland, than it is in Washington, D.C. You want to kind of pick up the local tone and feel. And that's really how these separate from each other. But again, having that sense of adventure, that brand voice of being informed, worldly, vivid, and charismatic is really how we carry out this brand. This is another important part too of knowing your audience. And again, this falls more under marketing, but segmenting your audience is huge, especially now. You can have the same person talking to two different people. Think about it almost like a teacher for those of you that have children in school, whether that's before homeschooling options, but that teacher, how she talks to your student versus how she talks to you as a parent. It's authentic in both cases, but it's quite a different way of speaking to each one and different messaging. So it is a crucial step when figuring out how your brand should talk in a couple different environments. So I want to bring up a couple examples. One is Disney does a great job. And I don't know if how many of you notice this, but if the way that they talk about their parks, again, pre-COVID, but on YouTube, where it's mostly kids, where they're advertising for kids cartoons or, Ryan's Toys or whatever, kids watch, they'll show predominantly kids at the park with no parents around. The freedom of enjoying something without being lectured or talked to, or, every kid's dream, right? I could run around the park and have an adventure without being told what to do. That's the visual cue. Now look at how they show it even with parents. They'll show commercials, even in daytime TV. They'll show grandparents sharing memories with their kids, enjoying their face when they go on Dumbo. They showcase the memories that you'll have if you take your kids to Disneyland. Or if it's younger adults where they show in younger adult programming to be that kid-like adventure again. Again, those are three different ways to sell the same product, and they do it from the same brand consistency where it's coming from the same person. It feels like it's a message from Disney, but they're saying three different things to three different audiences. Zales does that with jewelry targeted for women themselves, but then they also do it for husbands that are looking for a gift and vice versa. Uber does it for people who want to be patrons for rides, but they also talk differently to contractors to become employees or gig workers. And then following into Verizon, the way they talk about residential, internet and phone communications is quite different than they do with commercial and businesses. And that is the end of this presentation, which we have quite a bit for Q&A if there are questions. I left up the website where you can download this presentation right here, and we'll have, I think, a video of this later too if you want to play it for employees or people that you would think this was useful. So with that, I will stop sharing and check out the Q&A portion of it if there are any questions. And Brooke, I don't know if this is something where you want to moderate as well.
It doesn't look like we have any questions right now. I think that was really informative. Thank you.
No problem. Again, my pleasure. And if there's something that you're thinking of later too, my information and my company's information is on that link. So if there is things that you have more specific of your business and how to audit and how to really find out your branding to be able to launch right now, we're here to help and answer questions.
Thank you so much, Justin. We really appreciate your time and all your expertise.
No problem. Happy to help.
Wonderful. Well, have a wonderful day, everybody. Oh, you know what? Actually, we do have a question. What do you think about direct mail advertising?
Direct mail advertising. It is challenging. I'll give you that. It is changing with everything going to digital, because at the end of the day, advertising in itself is an interruption. It's an interruption to what you were doing, whether you were watching a show and then all of a sudden you can't watch a show because a commercial comes up, or you're at the gas pump, you're trying to pump gas, and now, another advertising, or you're reading an article in a magazine or newspaper, and now there's an advertising that stops what you were doing. To be able to do and find a condition where it's not, again, makes the person angry. With mail, you're trying to look for bills or look for letters, and there's a direct mail piece. So you have, from when you have your mail to the trash, to get somebody's attention and to get them to reflect on your brand. If you can do that in those 2 seconds, then it works. But it is very challenging with direct mail.
I do have to agree. I do the same thing with my mail, just goes right in the trash.
It's tough, but it can be effective if your messaging is straight and to the point and you can communicate your offering, and then it's worth it.
What about mailing it to your specific customer, that type?
If you have like a sales packet or something, that is mailing. Again, if it's authentic, if it's well needed, maybe there is some interest in there, then it's more of a conversation and less of an intrusion of their day. And if you can accomplish that and make it, again, that's where personal stuff comes in. If you handwrite it, goes a long way. If that aligns with your brand, it goes a long way.
Wonderful. I don't see any other questions. If anyone has any, please put it in the chat or the Q&A. If we don't get to it, then I can follow up with Justin afterwards. And I will be sending out an email with everything, the video presentation, also his PowerPoint and his contact too. Okay. I think we're finished here. Thank you so much, Justin.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to help.
Have a wonderful day.
All right, you too. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.